You know, history is full of some pretty wild stories. But what if I told you that in the 20th century, a modern professional army officially went to war against a bunch of flightless birds? And what if I told you the birds won?
So let's get right into it. This right here, this is an emu, a big, flightless bird, native to Australia. And back in 1932, it somehow became public enemy #1 for the Royal Australian Artillery. And I'm not kidding here, this wasn't some metaphor, it was a real honest-to-goodness military operation.
And we're not talking about a few pesky birds in a field. The enemy force was basically an army in its own right. We're looking at an estimated 20,000 emus migrating right toward the farmlands of Western Australia.
So you have to be asking, how in the world does a modern government decide to send in machine gunners to fight birds? Well, it wasn't just one bad call. It was more like a perfect storm of really, really bad luck, which brings us to our first section, a land of bad luck. And you can see that storm brewing right on this timeline. Okay, so after World War I, Australia gave its veterans farmland, but a lot of it was in these tough, barely farmable areas. Then boom, 1929, the Great Depression hits. Wheat prices totally tank, and these farmers are just getting crushed. And the final nail in the coffin, 1932, that massive emu migration shows up, and they see those struggling wheat fields as a giant free buffet.
Okay, so you've got these birds just running wild. They're eating and trampling the crops, sure, but they were also smashing through fences, which let rabbits in to cause even more chaos. Now, these farmers, they were ex-soldiers, so they knew what a machine gun could do. A group of them actually went to the Minister of Defense, Sir George Pierce, with this crazy idea. And get this, he agreed. He figured it was good target practice for the troops and a great PR move to show he was helping the farmers. He was so sure they'd win, he even sent a newsreel cameraman along to film the whole thing.
And just like that, the stage was set for Section 2, the Great Emu Offensive. The Army sent in Major Gwyneth Purvis when Aubrey Meredith and his men, locked and loaded, thinking this would be a quick and easy win against a very weird enemy.
Okay, so let's look at the tail of the tape here. It seems pretty lopsided, right? On one side, you've got the Australian Army, Major Meredith, 2 soldiers, 2 heavy Lewis machine guns, and 10,000 rounds of ammunition. On the other side, the emus. Their leader was apparently just a big black-plumed bird, their tactics were basically guerrilla warfare, and their defense, as you're about to see, was compared to the invulnerability of tanks.
The very first engagement on November 2nd was an absolute bust. The emus were just way smarter than they expected. When the soldiers tried to herd them together, the huge flock just instantly split up into tons of smaller groups and ran off in every direction. They were too far away, too fast, and way too unpredictable for the machine guns to do any good at all.
And if you thought that was bad, 2 days later, it turned into a complete and utter farce. The soldiers set up what they thought was a perfect ambush near a dam. Over 1,000 emus walked right into the trap. The gunners wait, they open fire, and the gun jams. Almost immediately. They took out maybe a dozen birds before the other 980-something just melted back into the bush. Unbelievable.
I mean, the whole thing was so ridiculous that one ornithologist, Dominic Cerventi, later wrote this, probably with a huge grin on his face. He said the Emu Command had evidently ordered guerrilla tactics. Now, obviously he was joking, but he's not wrong. The emu's natural behavior was a perfect counter to the Army's whole strategy. And you can just feel the Army's disbelief in this quote. This is from the commanding officer, Major Meredith, after they tried mounting a gun on a truck and couldn't even keep up with the birds. He said the emus could face machine guns with the invulnerability of tanks. That's a military commander admitting defeat to a bird.
Well, as you can probably guess, this series of disasters led directly to our third section, humiliation and a second try. The news reports were just brutal, the whole thing was becoming a national joke, and the Army basically had to pack up and go home.
Oh, and the political fallout? It was immediate. The press had a field day. It got so bad that in Parliament, someone sarcastically asked the Prime Minister if a special medal was going to be created for the Emu War. The public ridicule was just too much, so on November 8th, the military officially withdrew.
So you're probably thinking, with all that embarrassment, why in the world would they go back for more? Well, it's pretty simple, actually. The Army leaving didn't fix the problem. The emus were still there, things were getting worse with a new heat wave, and the farmers were practically begging the government to do something.
So they went back in. And this second attempt was, I guess you could say, more successful.
Major Meredith's official report claimed 986 confirmed kills. But just look at the cost. They fired 9,860 bullets. Let that sink in. That is literally 10 bullets for every single emu they killed. And that claim about 2,500 more birds dying later from wounds? Well, let's just say historians are a little skeptical about that number.
So by December, the guns finally stopped. But this whole bizarre chapter left a really strange and lasting legacy. So for our last section, let's look at the war's strange legacy, because it turns out the real solution had nothing to do with the military at all.
This chart pretty much says everything you need to know. The entire military operation, the machine guns, the soldiers, the media attention, all of that resulted in less than 1,000 dead emus. Meanwhile, a simple bounty system that was already in place, in one 6-month period, bounties were paid out on over 57,000 emus. The war was a spectacular, inefficient failure compared to just paying people to do the job.
But even the bounties weren't the real long-term answer. The thing that actually worked, the solution that finally stuck after all this chaos, was something way less dramatic. Exclusion barrier fencing. A good, strong fence designed to keep the emus out of the crops in the first place.
When it's all said and done, this whole huge conflict between man and bird wasn't decided by military strategy or firepower. It's a fantastic, kind of poetic lesson, really. The war wasn't won with guns, it was won with wire.
And because the whole story is just so nuts, it's become this lasting legend. The news went international, and you even had conservationists in Britain protesting what they called the extermination of the rare emu. The Australian government definitely learned its lesson, though. They said no every other time the farmers asked for military help. And the story is so good it's still being told, even inspiring a few movies, including one that was supposed to star John Cleese. You can't make this stuff up.
Which really just leaves us with this one last thought. It's a funny story for sure, but it also makes you wonder about how we approach problems. What does it say about us when the simplest, most effective solution is a fence, but the first idea we jump to is a machine gun?